Hello again and welcome back to the Samurai Joinery workshop build. The first thing you're looking at here is the new window going into the Samurai Joinery workshop. This was installed earlier, and getting it in place was one of those jobs where everything had to line up properly. The opening, the flashing, and making sure it was square and weather tight. Once the window was in though, it pretty much set the tone for this wall bay, because now everything has to frame around this. This wall is a little more involved than the previous ones. Instead of just straight studs, I've now got a frame around the window opening, making sure the studs, plates and noggins all line up cleanly, stay square, and leave me with something that's easy to clad later on. So the main goal in this episode is to build this wall bay cleanly and accurately, while working around the window opening. And I'm also using this as a chance to test pocket hole joinery for the framing. Normally I'd build this entire wall frame flat on the ground, and then stand it up into position. But at this stage of the build, the shed's already filling up with machines, tools and materials, so I just don't have the floor space to do that anymore. Using pocket hole joinery lets me build this wall in situ, fixing the studs and framing pieces in place as I go, without the need to clear half the workshop just to assemble a frame. It's a really practical solution when space is tight and you're working solo. To get the full 3.4 metre span for the top and bottom plates, I need to join a couple of shorter lengths together using half-lap joints. I bought a mixture of 2.4 and 2.7 metre lengths from the hardware store, simply because that's all I could safely fit in the back of the ute. I didn't want timber hanging out of the back or risking it on the drive home. Before any assembly takes place, I'm pre-drilling pocket holes in all of the studs using a Craig pocket hole jig and the matching drill bit. Doing this now means that when it comes time to put the frame together, everything's already prepped. It's just a matter of dropping each stud into position and driving the pocket hole screws in. With the half laps already cut, I'm gluing and screwing the joints to make up the full length top and bottom plates. I'll glue the joint first, clamp it down to pull everything tight and keep it flush, and then drive 4 screws through to lock it in place. Once it's fixed like this, the joint basically behaves as a single, longer piece of timber, straight, solid and ready to be framed off. With the joint clamped, the screws really help to pull everything together. After that, it's just a quick clean up of any glue squeeze out while it's still wet. It's a small step, but it saves time later and keeps everything neat before moving on to the framing. Before assembling the wall, I'm just clearing some space and giving the area a quick sweep and vacuum. It doesn't take too long, but having a clean and clear area makes the assembly smoother and helps keep everything accurate as I go. I then move on to marking out the stud positions on both the top and bottom plates. I'm allowing for the window opening here and using a small framing square to transfer the marks so the top and bottom plates line up exactly. Doing it this way keeps everything square and makes sure the studs drop straight in when it's time to assemble a frame. As I began the assembly, I noticed a steel bracket was in the way, so I've just notched the bottom plate slightly to let it sit flush on the floor before continuing. From here, it's just a matter of installing each stud using the pre-drilled pocket holes. I'm using 90 by 35 framing timber, and I ended up going with 64mm pocket hole screws. The packet actually recommends 51mm screws for this thickness, but after doing a quick test run, they felt a little bit weak for what I wanted here. The 64s bite in better, pull the joint up tighter, and overall just feel a lot more solid, which is exactly what you want when you're building this frame in place. Once the majority of the studs are in place and standing, I can move on to installing the top plate. I'm pretty much fixing it the same way, using the pocket hole screws to pull everything together. With the stud positions already marked and the pocket holes pre-drilled, it's just a matter of lining everything up and locking it in place. From here, it's onto the window framing, which actually wasn't as difficult as I expected. Because the window was already installed, it was just a matter of lining the studs up accurately with the window frame itself. Once those were in place, I could cut and install the window sill at the bottom and the window head across the top, tying everything neatly into the rest of the wall framing. Taking the time here to get everything aligned means the window sits clean, the framing stays square, and cladding later on will be much easier. I've also got an idea later on to install a sliding Shozy style screen over this window as part of the workshop fit out, so I'm keeping that in mind as I frame everything around it. And to tie everything in and square it up, I'm installing noggins between every stud. This helps pull the wall into alignment as I go, and it also adds a lot of rigidity to the frame. Later on, when I start installing cabinets and storage in the workshop, having solid noggins in place will make fixing into the wall much easier and much more secure. To finish off building the wall frame, I'm installing one extra stud towards the end of the wall. This is really about future planning. When I continue the back wall later on, it gives me a solid fixing point to the corner to tie the next stub wall into. Adding the extra stud and some blocking here just gives me more fixing options and makes that next stage a lot easier when the time comes. At this point, I don't want any loose wall frames standing around that could tip over and do some serious damage. So the next step is locking everything in properly. I start here by fixing the bottom plate down to the concrete using masonry screws. These are ramset screws, which anchor the wall securely to the slab. After that, I use galvanised L-shaped steel brackets through the midsection of the wall, tying it back to the steel frame with screws. Once that's done, the wall is solid, stable, and definitely not going anywhere. So one thing that's always worth doing when you're drilling into concrete is cleaning the holes out afterwards. A lot of dust builds up inside, and if you don't remove it, the screw won't always go in all the way and seat properly. So there's a few times here where I grab the shop vac and clean out the holes before driving those ramset screws in. It just makes the fixings go in clean and tight. Moving on to the next wall section, the first job is clearing out some space again. With all the machinery and tools in here now, I need to move everything out of the way and give the floor another sweep and vacuum where this wall bay is going to go. So here you'll notice I run into the same issue again on this wall where the steel bracket is sitting right where the bottom plate needs to land. Because this wall was already assembled, the only practical way to deal with it was to lift the wall slightly on a couple of bearers. And then I just got the handsaw out and notched the bottom plate in place. It's not the most elegant fix, but it clears the bracket, lets the plate sit flat on the floor, and means I can keep moving without pulling the whole wall apart. Once that's done, it's the same process as before. I drill for the masonry fixings, clean out the holes to get rid of the dust, and then drive the masonry screws through the bottom plate to anchor it to the concrete. And just a quick note, before I fix the bottom plate down, I also lay a strip of damp-proof course along the slab. This just acts as a barrier between the concrete and the timber, protecting the bottom plate from any moisture that could come up through the slab over time. After that, I tie the midsection of the wall back into the steel frame using galvanised brackets, fixing into the centre steel purlin of the shed. That locks everything in and keeps the wall solid and stable. And there you have it, the two wall bays built and locked in. Seeing it come together like this is a good milestone, and it really starts to give the workshop some shape. That's where I'll leave it on this one. In the next video, I'll be installing the ceiling battens ready for the ceiling cladding, and continuing on with the next wall bay as the build moves forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.